Hey, what's up everybody? It's Fuller from Worship Tutorials, and today we're going to be talking about open tunings, often referred to as, you'll hear DADGBD a lot. I'll explain kind of what that is. So let's start with the tuning for the guitar. Most of you know, if you don't, you know now, that the guitar is tuned E, A, D, G, B, E. Those are the notes of each string, and I don't want to bore you with that, but when you hear open tuning or when you hear DADGBD, all people are really doing is they're just changing the actual pitches of the strings. The most basic is the drop D tuning, where you're basically tuning the E string down to a D. And so all of the other strings are the same except the low string is a D, and it's basically, these two strings are the same. So you're basically tuning this string down. So normally it's an E, or yeah, I got this one down to a D as well. So you got the top string to an E, and basically you're just... And the best way to tune it on the fly is just tune it against the open D string until it sounds right, or use a tuner if you have that. Then we also are tuning the high E down to a D as well. You can use the same method against that open string, and then it gives you that nice sound. So what you have now is you have D, A, D, DAD, then G, B, D. So this is actually a variation of DADGBD, because we are actually, in DADGBD, you actually tune the B down to an A. So, but we're not doing that for today's lesson. We're going to keep that as a B. And so basically the way you think of your guitar at this point, every chord you play, the top note and the bottom note, or the bottom note and the top note, are going to be a whole step lower. So if you tried to play a regular chord, it doesn't sound right because now the guitar is tuned differently. So you have to figure out chords that work in this tuning, and that's what we're going to talk about. So the obvious first chord is D. So a lot of the songs that you play when you're in DADGBD, you want to play in the D formation, basically a D chord. So it's kind of like a regular D, except I'm actually lifting the high string, so when I play the whole guitar, it sounds really nice like this. So it's kind of got that open sound, and just by itself sounds really beautiful. Now, if I try to play a regular D chord, that high string is no longer an F sharp, because remember we tuned the string down to a D. So now that F sharp is actually an E note. And so you just kind of like got to play around with it and get a feel for it. What's cool about this tuning is you can do some really cool sounding, complex sounding stuff with very little left hand exercises. All right, so let's talk about a couple of basic chords in this key. So again, now you're going to have to relearn your fingerings because we've altered the tuning of the guitar. And another way, if it's too much at the beginning, maybe just experiment with just tuning the top string down first and playing with that. But so here's the D chord, nice and open. To play a G, now remember, so all of these notes actually work in a G chord, except really the A. So you could actually just, on the A string, play a B, and that's technically a G chord, but the way I like to do it is I like to actually play the G on the 5th fret here. So you got the G here, and then you're playing your finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and the rest is open. So you're actually only playing 2 notes. You can play the A, or you can mute the A string with your fingers. So that's a way to play a G chord. And then an A is pretty much the same, except for if you leave the D, open D in there, it actually has kind of a nice sound, but it is suspending the A chord, so you're actually getting an A sus. Or you can actually bar the entire chord, and now that D becomes an E, so you actually get an A chord. So D, G, A, back to D. And what's cool about this, to play a B minor, really all you do from the D is move your first finger to the 2nd fret of the A string, and it's technically a B minor chord, but with very little work. So you can play the D to the B minor, and it's kind of got that open sound to it. If you want to play an E minor, which often you will in the key of D, it's like a normal E minor, but you got to raise the string now that you've detuned to a D, the low D. So you would actually play, in addition to the regular E minor chord, you would actually play the 2nd fret on the top string, and gives you an E minor 7, because now the D is in the open string as well. So that's kind of basic chords in D with a open tuning. And remember, the cool thing about the open tunings, like say I want to play a song in E, all I got to do is throw a capo on the 2nd fret, and now my D chord is the E. So these tunings, the cool thing about the D progression, you can work up the scale and you could play an E just by putting the capo on there. You got to get a little bit used to where the 5th fret is, because if you start getting into flat keys, it becomes the 4th fret and it gets a little weird. So that kind of wraps up our basic tutorial on open tuning concepts. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.